Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex here with my co-host Anthony Rivardo. If you're new to the channel or just tuning into the episode, make sure to drop a like and a subscription below on the YouTube channel. Much appreciated as always. And if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, please go and give us a 5-star review. Would really appreciate all the love. And you know what? Everyday videos coming out your way. As always, even though this team blows chunks, even though we're suffering to get through this season, even though we want it to end now, just stop the pain already. Fire Dave Gettleman. Let us rejoice in a moment of happiness. But nonetheless, John Mara wants to give out free sodas instead. So here we are trying to figure out where the Giants are going. And the Giants, have some foundational pieces, right? There's 3 in specific we want to talk about in this video, but that's not enough, right? 3 individual foundational players isn't enough after Dave Gettleman was given more draft picks than any general manager in the league the past 4 years. The guy has had so many opportunities to find talent, and he has whiffed over and over and over again. We're getting ready to let go of Will Hernandez. I don't think we've had I think the last player to re-sign after the rookie deal with the Giants was Odell Beckham Jr. That is freaking sad. We barely
Sterling Shepard.
ever.
I think it's Sterling
Shepard. And Sterling Shepard. But the reality is we very rarely re-sign our players that were drafted here. And that's a big fundamental issue on this team. That means that we haven't developed them properly into players that can become foundational pieces, right? But we have 3 that, in my opinion, I'm sure Anthony will agree, look to be, at this point, foundational pieces that one day will justify an extension from this team. I want to pay homegrown players. I want to pay guys who have been here kicking ass for 4 or 5 years, because that's how you build a team with sustainable success, because they know the ways. You have to have those veterans. If you're always turning over the entire team, you're never going to have guys that know the culture, that know the system, that can help the young guys come up. You're always going to be trying to find the Antoine Betheas of the world, and that's not a sustainable practice. So, Anthony, before we dive into these 3 foundational players that hopefully will become the change in culture and shift in strategy for this team moving forward, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing great, and I'm excited to talk about these 3 players because, as you mentioned, homegrown talent is really important. If you look at all the best teams in the league, they have a lot of great homegrown talent. You look at the Green Bay Packers, they drafted Devontae Adams, they drafted Aaron Rodgers, they drafted Aaron Jones, those key players on their team. Sure, maybe their defense was filled out a little bit on the in the free agent market, but some of their best defenders were also drafted. You look at the Chiefs, drafted Patrick Mahomes, they drafted Tyreek Hill, they drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They drafted Travis Kelce. Like, the draft is the way to build. That's how you build your best football teams. You build through the draft. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, another great example. Sure, they signed Tom Brady. However, they drafted Chris Godwin. They drafted Mike Evans. And they drafted Tristan Wirfs and a whole bunch of other great players. So building through the draft gives you the ability to make signings in free agency that push you to the next level. The Giants have made some signings in free agency that they hoped had pushed them to the next level, but it didn't, because they have not built their roster fully through the draft. And that's the biggest issue surrounding the New York Giants, is their inability to build through the draft. So getting that homegrown talent, we seem like we have a few really good draft picks on the roster right now that were selected within the last 2 years. I think there's 3 that you can easily point out and say these are homegrown talents that we want to build around, foundational pieces for the long run. And I think that's exciting, because just having that, at least that little bit of a foundation, is really important for the Giants. Hopefully a new general manager steps in here, adds a whole lot more really good homegrown talent, a lot more good draft picks that we can build around, adds that to the bunch of guys that we have now, the 3 players that we're going to point out, and then the Giants can start building this team properly and building for a good and thorough future. So very important to find homegrown talent, and very excited by the 3 guys that we're going to list right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? When you're looking at some of those players, I'd rather spend money on players that are already on the team, right? Because ultimately, you're going to have to go out and spend big money in free agency anyway to plug some of these big spots. Like, consider Leonard Williams, go out and trade for people. Consider James Bradbury, Adoree Jackson, Kenny Galladay. I'd rather have a great player on our team and say, you know what? This guy's a stud. He's been killing it for 4 years. He doesn't get injured very often. I really like his style, and he's a key member of this team moving forward. Let's pay that man. Let's not go out and get a guy who may not be a fit. You go out, you bring Kenny Galladay in here. He's super injury prone. Daniel Jones is not the best quarterback for him. I think that he really needs a quarterback like a Jake Fromm yesterday that just gives him a little bit of time to get under those passes and adjust to the throw. So get a little bit more touch on those passes. I'm not saying Jake Fromm's the best quarterback for him. I'm just saying I like the way that he threw the ball to him. He gave him time to adjust his body and get in a position to make a catch. And I think that's what Kenny Galladay's best at. He needs time. He needs the ability to locate the football and adjust accordingly. And I think Daniel Jones throws absolute laser beams, and it doesn't really fit his style altogether that great at times, in my opinion, personally. But that's kind of what I'm trying to say is like, you bring in guys that may or may not mesh with this team. Like James Bradbury was a hell of a signing. Blake Martinez, great signing. But the reality is they signed those guys to be the foundational players, and then they started to build around them. Instead, I would rather have the Giants draft those foundational players, pay them to continue being those guys, and continue building around those guys for a 4 to 7, 8 year period, right? Because if you draft somebody and then extend them after the rookie deal, you're talking about 4 years and then an extra, let's say 3 or 4 years on a contract. Let's say 6 to 8 years you have to build around those guys. But when you're going out into free agency, signing guys to 3-year contracts with 2-year with the outs after the second year, you don't have much time to build around them, right? You have 2 seasons, and if it fails, you either have to move on, or you have to extend them, or you have to take on that third year, which is usually a big salary hit. So the Giants, what they've been doing is just unsustainable. It doesn't really promote a winning culture or a winning team, which is why the first person on this list of ours, which is so exciting, is Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas last year was considered the worst of the tackles, and there was 4 really good ones, right? Now, people are saying he might be the best this year of the 4 tackles because against Dallas yesterday, and they have DeMarcus Lawrence, they have Randy Gregory, they have Micah Parsons. He allowed 1 hurry on 38 pass blocking snaps. He was an absolute tank. It was his best game of the year via PFF in his grading system, 88.9 pass blocking grade. He was the highest graded tackle over the weekend. The guy has become a bookend left tackle, and that is what we needed. We need a left tackle that can come in here and kick ass every single week, because at the end of the day, if you have a quarterback who's not being protected, you're already failing. You're already in a position to fail. Now, Andrew Thomas is step 1 in what should be a multiple step process. And a lot of people are mocking Ekwonu from NC State, that offensive tackle, who's huge, a really great tackle prospect, can fill that right side adequately. I think that's going to be our 5th overall pick this upcoming draft. We're going to do a ton of research on him. Don't worry. We'll do evaluations on all of these players so you have as much information as possible. But that's a guy that I would definitely keep an eye on, because Evan Neal, I don't expect to be there, but Ekwonu, athletic, huge, physical. He fits exactly what we need. And hell, once you got those two tackle situations solved, plugging the interior makes it a lot easier, because when the edge is really struggling, those guards have to kick outside. They have to. It makes the chemistry really difficult to maintain. So I think that we can allocate some mid-round picks towards offensive guys in the middle, like whether it's center, or go after a Tyler Linderbaum, and I think he's going to be in the 10 to 15 range personally. Maybe we trade back with a team like Washington, who wants to take a run at Kenny Pickett, and we go and get Tyler Linderbaum in the 12 to 14 range, wherever they are right now. So that's something that I've been considering in my own head. But ultimately, Andrew Thomas, he has been such a big factor for this offensive line to even look okay. When he was out, it was even more of a disaster. On the year, he's allowed just 1 sack, 3 quarterback hits, and 11 hurries over 409 pass blocking snaps. Last year, over 615 pass blocking snaps, he allowed 10 sacks, 8 QB hits, and 39 hurries. So we're talking about he's 10 times better in terms of sacks. He's about 3 times better in terms of QB hits, and 3 times better or 4 times better almost in terms of hurries overall. So that's really impressive to me, in my opinion, Anthony. You're looking at Andrew Thomas. How exciting is it to have a left tackle? That's one of the bigger silver linings from this season.
By far, arguably the biggest silver lining of the season is the emergence of Andrew Thomas. I mean, he has had an absolute breakout season. This is the sophomore season that we were hoping for from Andrew Thomas. He's looked phenomenal. And if you look at the numbers, right, in terms of pass protection, pass blocking this year, the highest amount of pressures that he's given up in a single game is 3, and that was in week 14 last week against the Chargers. Now, if you go back to 2020 and you look at his rookie season, the highest number of pressures that he allowed in a single game was 9 in total, and he also had a game with 6, and he had a game with 7, and he had multiple games with 4 and one game with 5. So just looking at that alone, the fact that this year his single game high in pressures is 3, and he had multiple over 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9. I mean, that is just a drastic difference. I know smaller sample size. Andrew Thomas missed a few games this year, but he still played in a good amount of games and had a whole lot of pass blocking snaps. And for him to have pretty much just one pressure to two pressures in every single game, and then one game with three as his worst pass protecting game of the season, that is just a drastic, unbelievable improvement from Andrew Thomas. He looks like everything he was cracked up to being in the pre-draft process when everyone said this could be the best offensive tackle in the 2020 draft class coming out of Georgia. He finally looks like that prospect that we were all expecting to see when the Giants drafted him 4th overall in the 2020 NFL draft. So really, really encouraged by Andrew Thomas's development in his second year. Super excited to see how the Giants build around him. Alex threw out a whole bunch of different options that the Giants could go with in terms of building different offensive linemen around Andrew Thomas. Super important stuff there. You definitely want to pair him with better offensive linemen around him because there's only so much that one left tackle can do. Now, that left tackle can do a whole lot for a team, can do a whole lot protecting the quarterback's blind side, but the rest of the offensive line needs to get in shape. That's going to be a major focal point for the Giants, the new general manager coming in this offseason, building the rest of the offensive line around Andrew Thomas, finding another right tackle, getting the bookends there, and then also improving the interior of the offensive line is going to be important as well, keeping the quarterback upright and also helping the running back find rushing lanes. Andrew Thomas, though, super, super excited with him. One of the best players on the New York Giants right now, and he's only in his second season. It's only up from here. Long term, he's going to be a phenomenal player for the Giants. He is super important to the success of this team going forward, and I'm really excited to have a great left tackle finally playing for the New York Giants.
Yeah, and I think that, having that left tackle solved is arguably the most important thing at this point, aside from the quarterback position, right? Obviously. Now, the Giants offense is probably going to experience some major changes this upcoming offseason, depending on how they go with this general manager situation. But you have Sterling Shepard, who just tore his Achilles. He's probably done with the Giants. I mean, that's probably his last snap ever with this team. And ultimately, I think they're going to have to cut him. They're going to have to save that money. And they're going to have to find a slot receiver, right? And for the record, the 3rd round is my favorite slot receiver round. Go get an Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's so many great players that go overlooked in the 3rd round. That's where I want to get my slot receivers, because those guys end up being like just overlooked. Slot receivers are oftentimes overlooked to begin with, right? Those are the smaller guys, are a little quicker, a little more agile. Those Amon-Ra St. Browns, those are the ones I love. And Anthony, didn't you love him during the draft process? You spoke about him
Yeah,
from USC, right?
yeah, I sure did. And, I did a film breakdown on him as well. I'm sure that many of the viewers of this channel remember that because I did the film breakdown on him. I really liked him, thought he was a really good player. Did I think he was a first round prospect? No, I thought that he was the perfect guy to get in the 3rd round to be that slot receiver. Reminded me a lot of guys like Sterling Shepard, just super dependable. But Amon-Ra St. Brown has a lot of physicality to his game as well. I really like his contested catch ability and thought that he was a surprisingly good red zone threat at his size. So, yeah, I mean, that speaks to Alex's main point. In the 3rd round, in those middle rounds, you can find really good slot receivers. Sterling Shepard was a middle round receiver. Okay, so there is definitely the opportunity, especially with how great the talent has been at the wide receiver position in recent years in these draft classes. There are many opportunities to find slot receivers and even some outside receivers in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. I mean, T. Higgins is a 2nd round pick. There's just been a lot of really great wide receiver talent in the middle rounds in the recent years, and I really hope that the Giants recognize that and start investing in that position in the middle rounds going forward.
Yeah. I mean, the Giants obviously have Kadarius Toney. He will probably end up being the primary slot man, but I think they're going to do so many different things with him, and also the injury concerns obviously are starting to bubble. I think it would be totally fair if they used one of those 3rd round picks on a slot receiver, a guy that really is purely just a slot guy. Not someone that you're going to move outside, you're going to do all the stuff with. It's just a dominant slot receiver, because I think the Giants try to get too pretty sometimes, and it ends up confusing themselves. They end up confusing themselves. Like, get a guy who is really good at one thing or two things and maximize strengths, right? The Giants are so bad, so putrid at maximizing players' strengths. It's hard to watch most times. Like, you watch Kadarius Toney, how they completely avoided using his strengths when he was healthy. Kenny Galladay, they still haven't figured out how to use the freaking guy. Saquon Barkley, I mean, they haven't known how to use that guy since his sophomore season after they fired Pat Shurmur. They haven't known how to use him. So, when you're looking at the talent that we have on this roster, you just get the sense that they don't really capitalize on the skill sets of some of these guys. I would love for them to go out and find a guy who's just really good in the slot. He's a really good slant runner. He's really good on the crossing routes, and he can get into space, and he's smart. He has a high football IQ. That's all I want. I don't need him to be blazing fast. I don't need him to be this monster receiver. I just need him to be really good at a couple things with upside and the rest of it. And that's really what I'm looking for in the third round picks. And I think that the Giants can hit on some of those. But that was a little tangent on the side there. But, that's kind of what we like to do, is go off on these tangents, give you guys some scenarios and ideas for you to consider and think about as we move forward. But the second player on the list, and there was only one on the offense, being Andrew Thomas. There's two on the defense. The first one is Xavier McKinney. Xavier McKinney, and Anthony's been one of his biggest fans since the Giants were considering him in the draft. He made an awesome video about him, talking about how they would use him as this free safety, but also moving up into the box. And he's done just that. He is so instinctual. His football IQ is off the charts at this point. Just in his second season, he's basically still a rookie with the lack of experience he had during his rookie season after the fractured foot. And he's taken on such a big role in this defense, right? He roams the outfield and the deeper portions of the secondary, and he's so good at baiting these these quarterbacks into making throws, and that he has really surprising game speed, right? He wasn't the fastest guy by any means during the combine, but everyone said that talked about him, that knew what they were talking about, said he has really great game speed. And you see that with his instincts, right? He recognizes things. He sees where the quarterback is looking. He allows the quarterback to think he's being baited to a certain portion, but he knows where the quarterback actually wants to go by watching a lot of film, which is a testament to his IQ and his knowledge of what teams are trying to do. And that's what we saw against the Raiders, by the way, with Derek Carr. You saw Logan Ryan blitz off the edge. Xavier McKinney kind of shifts over to his right, knowing that he wants to give Derek Carr that little bit of room to throw that ball down the field. And Xavier McKinney's ready to break on it. He sprints full speed from the midfield point, and he intercepts that pass. And now I believe was his fourth of the season or fifth of the season. The guy has 5 interceptions this year. He's definitely up there in Pro Bowl votes. He has 73 combined tackles, 28 assists, 9 passes defended. Overall, 22 years old, second year. He's a second round pick, so we still got 2 years left on his deal. He's a foundational piece in the secondary, right? He's a safety that we needed so desperately bad. The ages of Antoine Bethea and Curtis No Angle Riley, all these guys, we saw how important it is to have a good free safety who can also move up into the box and play strong safety, which Anthony hit on a couple months back. And we've seen him develop into just a surprisingly essential player for this defense, Anthony. When you're looking at him, I imagine you also consider him a foundational piece of this team.
Absolutely. I considered him a foundational piece of this team before he even played a snap with the Giants. As Alex mentioned before the draft, this is another player that I did a film breakdown on, like I did with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He didn't go to the Giants. Xavier McKinney did a film breakdown on him, and Azeez Ojulari also did a film breakdown on him. We're going to talk about him in just a second. So I've been kind of hitting on these pre-draft evaluations pretty good. So stay tuned for more of those this upcoming offseason. But with Xavier McKinney, I really liked him. The video, I've talked about this video, referenced it many times whenever we bring up Xavier McKinney pretty much, because it was titled, Xavier McKinney Will Be a Star for the New York Giants. That was the title of the video. Right now, Xavier McKinney looks like a star for the New York Giants. He has 5 interceptions. He's been a ball hawk. He's been really good in run support. He has been a very, very good safety for the New York Giants, and he's only in his second season, and he's only in the second season after only playing in 4 games in his rookie season, so this is kind of like a de facto rookie season for Xavier McKinney. It's only up from here. Foundational piece, absolutely. Really good, really young, has a bright, long future ahead of him. Can't wait to see what Xavier McKinney does on the back end of the New York Giants defense in the long run. Think that he's phenomenal. I really love the way that he jumps on routes, right? It's his play recognition that really allows him to do that. And that was one of the main things that I cited in my reasoning for him being a star one day, his play recognition, his high football IQ. He is such a smart football player, knows how to read the quarterback's eyes, knows how to read offensive route concepts and schemes, and just jump on routes, can get into the slot, play man-to-man on slot receivers, lock down tight ends and man coverage. He's really the complete package from a coverage standpoint on the back end as a safety. And that's why I really do think that he is a foundational piece. And I love Xavier McKinney. I got to get his jersey soon enough. I'm a huge fan of his, and I'm excited to watch him play long-term for the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, he's a key factor for this team in the secondary. It really allows them to play more cover one. It allows them to blitz more. It forces quarterbacks to settle for shorter throws. You don't see teams taking that many big shots against them, except for that Chargers game. That was the one game where like you got Justin Herbert throwing 70-yard passes. So like there's some guys you just can't stop when it comes to that. But ultimately, Xavier McKinney really does a lot of good for this team in terms of limiting the field for opposing offenses and really, squishing things in between the sticks, which is what you really want to do. as a defense. But the last guy on this list is none other than rookie Azeez Ojulari. Now, a lot of people will say it's too early to tell if he is a real foundational piece, but I would argue that I don't think it's too early to tell. He is a second round pick. He's a 50th overall selection, and he's done such a great job as a pass rusher this year. He has a lot of room left to grow, but guys, he is 21 years old. He is 21 years old. He started this year barely turning 21. He was still 20 when the season just about started. He is super young. His body is not even fully developed yet. His brain is not fully developed yet. This kid is going to be good. He's going to be a very good player for this team. I believe he's a foundational piece because of what we saw as a rookie. He has 8 sacks now. He has 23 tackles. I mean, he's produced 23 hurries, 3 QB hits. Altogether, I've been very, very impressed with his style of play this year. He has a couple of pretty solid pass rush moves. He has a really nice club where he tries to grab the inside hand, and then he'll try to club it with the other one. But he has to develop some more pass rush moves, right? That is going to be his biggest next step, his biggest challenge is going to be adding more to his repertoire of pass rush moves, right? I think he's been pretty solid against the edge in terms of defending the run. I think he's been good enough. He definitely will have to improve in that area, but his run defense has been solid. It's been probably average. His pass rush has been a little bit above average. For a rookie, I'd say that's tremendous. I'd say you're on your way towards being a foundational piece. As the 50th overall pick, that's a really good steal for the Giants. And I'm going to say this one more time because a lot of people, I know everyone is really, really angry at Joe Judge right now, and me included. But I will say this. I think Joe Judge is a phenomenal evaluator of college talent. Does that make him a good head coach? Absolutely not. It does not make him a good head coach at all. But I do think he is really good at evaluating college talent. And I do think he's been pretty solid with the draft the last 2 years. I think that the trade back was great for this team. Kadarius Toney is obviously an unbelievable talent when he's healthy, but the health issues obviously have been a little bit problematic. Azeez Ojulari is hitting big time. Xavier McKinney is hitting big time. Andrew Thomas hitting big time. I liked Aaron Robinson. I like Darnay Holmes. I think they got a couple of good special teamers in Cam Brown rather, at the back end of the draft, Anthony. So when you're looking at this team, Tate Crowder, the guy was Mr. Irrelevant. He's starting on this team right now. He might not be a great player, but he at least holds his own, which is pretty impressive for the last pick in the draft, Anthony. So when you're looking at this team right now, the past 2 drafts, Joe Judge might be a shit head coach, but hell, he's done a pretty good job in my eyes in the draft. And I trust him in this upcoming draft. If the Giants are going to keep him, it's because, damn, we've actually gotten some pretty damn good players over the past 2 years that are foundational pieces, more so than we had in the last 5 or 6 under Dave Gettleman and Jerry Reese. So when you're looking at this team, Anthony, if they're going to keep Joe Judge, I think it's not going to be because of his head coaching qualities. I think it's going to be because of his scouting qualities.
Yeah, clearly he does a good job behind the scenes. He does a good job inside of the organization, helping the team scout, helping the team make selections. And one interesting thing that I do want to point out, all of these players that we've mentioned are from the SEC. We're talking about Alabama and Georgia players. And you just mentioned Azeez Ojulari, Andrew Thomas, and Tate Crowder, all 3 great draft picks, all out of Georgia. If Joe Judge does one thing well, he scouts players from Georgia. That's what he does well. He does that really well. So hopefully, going forward, the Giants continue to scout players out of Georgia. Yeah, I mean, Jake Fromm was from Georgia too. Maybe Joe Judge knows something that we don't all know. We're not privy to that information just yet. Maybe Jake Fromm's a future. No, I'm just kidding. But I do want to touch on Azeez Ojulari. Again, another player. Did a film breakdown about him before the draft. Really liked him. I know there was a lot of rumors before the draft that the Giants could take him with the 11th overall pick, or they could trade down into the middle of the first round, take him with the 15th or 20th overall pick. They did not take him with the 11th overall pick. But I said if they did that, I would have been fine with it because I thought that he was a top 20 talent, and I didn't think it was a huge reach to take a top 20 talent at 11 or at 15 if they did trade down a little bit. So they didn't take him in the first round. They ended up trading down again in the second round, and they got him at the 50th overall pick. Tremendous value. This is a guy that was projected to go in the top 15, went all the way at 50 to the Giants. Perfect selection. The Giants really hit that one out of the park, and I think that he has been a really good player. Now, at times, he kind of disappears. He's out there one game, he's looking phenomenal. He has 1 sack. He has 2 sacks. He's just disrupting the whole game and tormenting a quarterback all game, right? The next week, you don't even see Azeez Ojulari. He kind of disappears. Why is that? because he's only like what, 21? He's 20 years old, 21. He's super young and he has so much room to grow. He has so much time and room to develop. He's only a fraction of the player that he is going to be by the end of his career. Like, he's already pretty good, but he's only going to get better. Super young, has the ability to add more pass rush moves to his arsenal, has so much speed and physicality and bend around the edge, all the stuff that you can't teach. I love Azeez Ojulari. I think that he's going to be a phenomenal player long term for the Giants, like all of the other guys that we've mentioned. And I think that he is going to be our best pass rusher for the next couple of years here because, like I said, he's young and he's only going to get better. That's how I see it. I think Azeez Ojulari is only scraping the surface of his talents right now in his rookie season. And what he's scraped off so far looks pretty damn good to me. So I'm really excited about that. And then I will touch on your Joe Judge point one more time. Everybody knows I used to be the leader of the Joe Judge fan club. I recently did step down from that position. I'm not the biggest fan of Joe Judge anymore. He's done way too much bad stuff this regular season. I mean, he just has not been the coach that he promised to be. And that's mainly the number one thing. False promises. I hate false promises. Dave Gettleman made a lot of false promises. That's why we want him out of here. Joe Judge has also made a lot of false promises, and that's why I've kind of turned on Joe Judge a little bit. But like you said, got to give credit where it's due. Since he's joined the Giants, they have drafted a lot better, and they have found a lot better talent in the middle rounds of the draft. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that Joe Judge, and I think that he probably places an emphasis on going for guys in the SEC, and guys in the SEC just happen to be better typically, right? Because they're more prepared. They're playing in the best systems in college. And those guys that we mentioned, Andrew Thomas, Azeez Ojulari, Tate Crowder, all from Georgia, Xavier McKinney from Alabama. These are the Giants' best players right now. And I think that, it's a Joe Judge effect, in my opinion. I think that he had a large say in drafting those players from the SEC. He's got the Alabama connections. I think that Joe Judge has done a really good job at helping the Giants scout better and draft better. And so if he is here for another year and they've got a new general manager stepping in, hopefully Joe Judge meshes well with that new general manager and they're able to find a perfect marriage in the draft because, like we said, this is what the whole purpose of this video has been. Building through the draft is crucial. And Joe Judge does help us build through the draft better than other head coaches have. So if there's anything to compliment him on and be excited about Joe Judge for in the future, it's that.
Yeah, if there's anything, but I'm still not over I saw a lot of positives after this game today. I can't hear that shit again. It actually like makes my blood boil because we hear it every week. It's like almost it's the same exact phrase, just worded slightly differently. And it grinds my gears, bro. Like every week we lose. I liked how they fought. We lose. We played some good football. We lose. I see a lot of progress. I'm like, bro, you're saying the same thing and your team fucking blows, bro. Like, you suck. Your team sucks. They lose. They get blown out. You have Mike Glennon starting at quarterback. Jake Fromm sitting on the bench. Jake Fromm had 82 yards in 4 minutes, and Mike Glennon had 99 yards and 3 interceptions in 3.5 quarters. Tell me how that makes any sense. What, as if Mike Glennon gives you a better chance to win. To me, it seems like they're losing on purpose by just starting Mike Glennon, but who am I? So at the end of the day, I think that he's done a pretty good job at least drafting some new players, getting some foundational pieces. That's the point of this video, foundational pieces onto this team, because before that, I can't name any foundational pieces. Name me one foundational piece Dave Gettleman had. Maybe after his rookie season, Saquon Barkley was a foundational piece, but that fell apart pretty quickly.
I'm going to say Julian Love. Julian Love is the only one that I can think of because he's
a foundational
great
depth piece.
foundational depth piece. He's a great depth piece.
Yeah, he's a foundational depth piece, but that doesn't help us that much because we need foundational starters, and not just foundational depth pieces that go under the radar. We need foundational starters who are freaking all pros. That's what we're looking for. All pros, Pro Bowl level players, really good guys that are impact players. Every single week they show up. That's the difference between being good and great. You can't disappear some weeks. I think that Azeez Ojulari is good right now because he disappears some weeks, but if he can make an impact in some way every week, that is when he'll be great. I think that Andrew Thomas makes an impact every week. That is why he is great. I think that Xavier McKinney makes an impact every week, or at least most weeks, probably 85% of weeks. So he's on his way to being great. But ultimately, guys, I'm curious to hear what you guys think about Joe Judge moving forward. These foundational pieces, do you agree with us? Are there any others that you think that should be included? I know a lot of people have a lot of thoughts on Daniel Jones. I didn't want to include him in this because I just haven't seen the foundational piece portion of him yet. I haven't seen that he can lead this team to victory. I haven't seen him like do enough, and it's not all his fault. It's a lot of it has to do with the offensive line, and a lot of it has to do with the play calling. And the Giants have the most drops of any team this year. They had 4 or 5 drops just yesterday against Dallas. It's getting absurd. What can you do at that point? It's not always Daniel Jones's fault. A lot of blame goes toward him, but it's pretty well spread out in my opinion. But guys, as always, make sure to like and subscribe below on YouTube. Really appreciate the love. And if you're tuning in this far, all the love to you guys. And we'll be doing daily videos. Can't wait for draft season to come out. And we will be evaluating players all the time and getting you some really good content so that you have an idea of what we're going to be looking toward. The Giants have 9 draft picks this year. There's going to be a lot of talented players for us to take a look at. And I'm excited because it's so many opportunities for us to get one right. But hopefully the Giants get all of them right. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants video. Much love. See you guys later.